Good morning, traders. It's Thursday, July the 28th. Taking a look at the charts, got a bunch of things we can cover real quick here this morning that I'm going to start to talk about more and write about. I think there's some good opportunities coming around the corner here. But looking at the SP 500, this is the SPY ETF. You can see we've been trading sideways here for a couple of weeks, consolidating. We talked about yesterday in the video how the Bollinger Bands were tightening, and when they pinch, we typically see some type of big move. And that's kind of right where we're at. Now, yesterday we saw the markets sell off and then recover fairly nicely on the session. If we just go to the futures this morning, you can see where we continue to trade slightly lower down, pretty much flat on the session. But if we jump down to the intraday charts here of the SPY, let's go to the 30-minute chart. You can see the sideways chop that we've had. Big moves to the upside, big moves to the downside, very noisy sideways price action, tough to trade. And what's yesterday we talked about how the equities market could continue to grind its way slightly higher to kind of squeeze out the rest of the shorts, get everyone even more bullish, and just before it kind of reverses. Now, if we just kind of zoom in on the chart here, you can see this morning on the SPY, we've got a spike up, bringing us right to the upper end of this range. So it looks as though we could see the SP 500 work its way back up, and that will in return, we'll see the VIX continue to move down. So if we take a look, let's pull up the VXX ETF. Overall, we're looking at the VXX ETF likely to, it's trading up in pre-market here, kind of testing resistance, this little breakdown zone. Yesterday, the VIX moved up, and then the second half of the session, it just crashed and sold right back down, breaking the previous, the support low. And of course, in overnight trading, we've come all the way back up, testing that breakdown zone. And now likely we might see this pop up a little bit higher, but overall I expect the VIX to fade back down today as the SP 500 moves up to try and fill that spike price. Now let's take a quick look at the US dollar index. Jumping over here, we've got this this price action where we've had a big pop in price and it's kind of been grinding its way up here. Very similar to what we've seen in the past where we see it have a big spike up in price and kind of grind its way up and have these series of bear kind of flags kind of forming. So that's kind of where we're at. And we talked about how we were hoping it was going to squeeze up to around the 98 here before kind of rolling over yesterday. And today the news started to move down and break down. So it looks as though it's starting to fall. We could see a pretty precipitous fall here going forward, bring us back down somewhere to the 94.5 area, where it'll try and find support right through the middle of all these pivot lows and congestion area, just like we've seen in the past where the market falls pretty sharply from these patterns. Overall, it has significant pivot highs here, making lower highs going forward, and this is kind of a little bit of almost like a three-wave correction, counter trend correction up to this area, starting to move down. So we might play the UDN ETF, which means it rises in value as the US dollar falls. So we're keeping our eye on that for potential play this morning, and we could see this continue to fall. And again, the big picture of the US dollar index, you can see here, let's go to the weekly actually. You can see we had a big move up. It's kind of been consolidating. You could argue this is a big bull flag or a topping phase. We don't really know at this point, but it's come up, hit resistance, starting to sell back down, and it's got lots of room to come to the lower end of this range. And if it breaks that level, we're going to see it continue all the way down to probably around the 85, 87 area, if not further. So this big drop in the dollar would also spur on a massive rally in commodities, specifically precious metals. Now, if we take a quick look at metals, I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in detail. I'm going to write an article about this. I think there's an opportunity here brewing for one of the metals that has yet to take. We've seen all the metals more or less come down and kind of break through these basing patterns. You could argue where they are, but you can see they've all kind of broken out of these previous pivot highs and moved up. Palladium, you could argue there's one through here, or it's just coming up and testing a fairly more significant breakout zone. Now, copper is the only one that has yet to really turn up and pop, and it's been coming down here kind of flagging. We do have elevated volume across here showing there's some interest in accumulation going on. And if we do get a break of this level here, we could see a pretty explosive move, just like all these other ones where we start to see it break out and pop. Silver had a very clean breakout and pop, tight consolidation. Yesterday we started to see a nice reversal in metals to the upside, and looks as though these things could continue to move up, which we are long metals. And platinum had a beautiful move up there in the last couple of days. This is the weekly chart, keep in mind. So in the last week, we've seen platinum really take off to the upside. So copper is kind of sitting there getting ready to pop, building potentially a little bit of a base. And when it does break, I think we could see it run very quickly all the way up to around the about 75 area. And taking a quick look at coffee just to keep in touch there. Still watching coffee. Coffee, this is again the weekly chart. It's moving, continuing to move down. It does have upward momentum. We did have some nice volume. These green bars moving up in price. Now it's consolidating on light volume, which is what we want to see. If we take a look at the weekly chart, or sorry, the daily chart, I'll just zoom in here. It's kind of doing a little bit of a consolidation at this point still. It was starting to show signs of a little bit of a reversal. At this point, it still looks pretty bearish. If this does unfold, where we've got this down bar, this tight little consolidation, we could see it come all the way down to the to 134, somewhere in here, talking about how it could break this pivot low or this pivot low to really flush the market out and reset itself and get down deep into a support zone. We do have lots of pivot highs through this area here, through this 135, 134 area. So if it comes and stretches down to that level, it'd be a probably very quick bounce off that 135 from this pivot low and these pivot lows here, and it could try and find support and continue to move up. But the big picture for coffee going back here is something very similar to what we've seen over here, where we could easily start to see a very explosive move in coffee to the upside. And I think we're just in the early stages. We've had about a 2-week pullback, just like over here, a 2-week pullback before we see massive volume piled in and see a huge move up in coffee. So I'm still liking that play, and we're just kind of trying to find some support, let the market shake out the longs before we can get back in and hopefully see a big move up to the 200 or potentially even up to the 250 mark once again. Anyways, that's it for this morning. Talk to you in a little bit. Bye-bye.